Hey everybody, this is Phil from Mr. Phil's Alabama Hot Sauce. On the web, that's alabamahotsauce.com. alabamahotsauce.com. It's a rainy, dreary day here in North Alabama. It makes no better time than to go in the kitchen and work on a little hot sauce. Today, I'm going to take you through creating a pepper mash for fermentation and later for incorporation into a great Mr. Phil's Alabama hot sauce. Now, why don't you guys and girls go in the kitchen and grab a seat, and I'll join you there in just a minute. We'll get going. Thank you, and I'll see you in the kitchen. Hey everybody, this is Mr. Phil again. I'm back with you in the kitchen. Today we're going to make a habanero pepper mash for fermentation. Now, using a pepper mash is a little bit different than what most people do. The typical fermentation is to use the ingredients just roughly chopped up and ferment them. But I'm actually going to make a mash. It's going to be a pretty heavy grind of these habanero peppers. Now, in addition, the only thing that's going to be in this ferment is going to be the habanero peppers. When I make sauces, I really like to ferment all the different ingredients separately. That allows me to very precisely measure and mix each ingredient. If I make corrections, I have very accurate measurements. When I'm finished, if it's something I like, I've got a really, really good formula. Now, before we get started, we need to gather all our important stuff with us. I've got my scales here for measuring in grams. I've got a sharp chef's knife, which is essential. I've got a wooden stirring spoon in case I need it. I've got about 1,008 grams of habanero peppers, okay? I've also got pickling salt. I've got my pH meter, which I probably won't use on film today because I don't think we're going to need to measure the pH of this mash. And I've got my processing machine. I don't make a lot of peppers. As a matter of fact, if you're going to do very much in the house, in the kitchen, you need a good blender. This particular one is a Vitamix Exploring. It's not the fanciest model they make, but it'll do everything that the $700 model does. And you can buy these things for about $350, $400. Vitamix mixer does a far better job of liquefying peppers than any machine I've ever used. Now, I've also got a Vitamix hand mixer, hand wand. Sometimes I use more than a single container of peppers in a single mix. So with this device, I can mix it, I can put them together. Even if I don't quite get them mixed in the same consistency in the Vitamix, I can use this in a regular pot or pan to liquefy and get these things at the right consistency. In addition to that, I have already weighed out 40 grams of salt. Now, I've got it in 2 containers, and I will show you when we start putting it in the fermentation jar why I have it in 2 containers. This is 20 grams, this is 20 grams. That happens to be 4% of the total weight I've got of peppers, which is 1,008 grams. So it actually would be 41 grams total, but 40 grams is going to be plenty. Now, I've got my half-gallon fermenting jar. This has been sterilized, it's been washed, and I'm going to use my Star San. Star San is a no-rinse sanitizer. So I'm going to spray the inside of this jar. You don't have to rinse it out. You simply turn it over. I'm doing it over here off camera. You turn it over and let it drain. I'm going to do the same thing to my top here. Now, I like to do vacuum fermenting. And vacuum fermenting means that I have to have a top that will let air out without letting air in. There's lots of devices that will do that, but only these one-way valve type caps can work with vacuum fermenting, because when we're all finished, I'm going to put a hand vacuum pump on it, and I'm going to remove all the air from the headspace in this bottle. And we'll talk through what that accomplishes when we get to that stage. So I'm going to set this over here and just let it dry. Star San's available at a number of places. It's this little bottle was $10. I predict that it'll last me a year. You dilute it like 5 or 10 grams per gallon of water. You keep it in a spray bottle, and I spray everything before I use it. Now, before we started today, with all this equipment, I washed it, I sanitized it, I sterilized it. So I used soap and hot water, I used boiling water, and then I sanitized with the Star San. Even that jar I just sprayed again was sanitized before it was put up here on this, was sprayed before it was put on this counter. You have to be really, really, really clean in order to ferment peppers. Now, I'll give you another caution. Don't mess with peppers without gloves. I know some people are tough men, and they think they got tough skin. I'll be the first to admit I do not have tough skin. As a matter of fact, I double glove. Now, when I'm chopping peppers, as long as I can, with a knife, as long as I can keep my face away, I can tolerate it. But when you get to grinding them in a blender, that's a whole different thing. Habaneros are very hot, and they release a lot of gas from the oil that's in them. And I'm telling you, it will permeate your kitchen. So in addition to gloving up, give me 1 second here. In addition to double gloving, when I go to blending with the blender, I'm going to put on a sealed medical N95 mask. And that's not the cheap KN95 mask that we use for COVID. This is a genuine N95 mask. It fits tight to your face because I don't want to breathe in those fumes. As a matter of fact, I might even put on oxygen. I know that sounds silly, but I can't stand to breathe these hot raw peppers in. They hurt my lungs. I'm not a young chicken anymore, so I want to take care of myself the best I can. Now, I've already chopped up about 1,000 grams of these peppers. I saved out a few for a couple of reasons. I'm going to show you what I do to them. But mostly, I want to show you the beautiful colors. These are considered orange habaneros, but some of them are half orange, half yellow. Some of them are dark red like this one. These are absolutely great peppers. Now, I could just pull the stems off, which I'm doing here, and throw these peppers right in the grinder, because I'm going to grind them up to a mash. But habanero is a thin-skinned pepper. And thin-skinned peppers tend to disintegrate from the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut each of these peppers in half, because I just want to get a look at the inside of the pepper, and I want to feel each pepper. So what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting them in half. Now there's the interior of the pepper. You'll see that there's some seeds and there's a placenta. The placenta and the seeds are the vast majority of the heat in these peppers. I'm going to leave them in because I want to get all the heat I can possibly get out of these things. So what I'm doing is I'm filling each pepper as I pick it up. I make sure it's firm, it looks good. I look on the inside, see that there's nothing wrong there. I've got my trash pan here. If there's anything I don't want to put in there, I can throw away. You got to have a good sharp chef's knife, by the way. Trying to work with a dull knife doesn't work. Get you a sharp one. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can go to Sam's Club or Walmart and you can buy kitchen chef knives for about $10 a piece that come ridiculous sharp. Now they won't last but a year or two. You'll have to sharpen and strop them in between. But when you're done with them, as cheap as they are, you throw it away and you go get another one. But you got to start with a sharp chef's knife. Otherwise, you butcher your food, you run the risk of butchering your fingers. So now, we've got 108 grams, 1,008 grams of habanero peppers that have been cut in half. We're now going to move to the blending. Now, as I said before, everything before I use it, I spray it with Star San. I'm going to turn it upside down for just a minute and let it drain a little bit. soon as this stuff makes contact with anything, it completely sterilizes it. So give that just a second. Now, we talked about this lid I'm going to use today. The one you see most common is this lid, this type of bottle. This is a ferment that I started about 3.5 months ago. This has got a one-way water valve. I actually put vodka in there because I don't want water falling down in my mix, and the vodka is great for sanitizing. Now this is a very, very clean ferment. By clean, I mean it doesn't have much calm yeast on the top. Still has a little bit. Unfortunately, I can't pull a vacuum in this bottle, because if I pull a vacuum, it'll just suck this vodka down into the solution. So what I choose to use instead is either a container like this one that has that little one-way, I call it a snorkel valve on top. I can put my contents in there, put my suction pump on it, and just suck all the oxygen right out of that headspace. Now what we're using today, like I said, is a slightly different nipple. This is one-way nipple. It can also be vacuumed. So you're going to see me at the end of this process vacuum all the air out of the headspace of this container. Now, we got our jar sanitized. I'm going to start transferring peppers into the mixer jar, the blender jar. Oh, these things look great. Now, I'll put the cap on, bring this down a little bit. Now, when you're dealing with something as dry as peppers, Vitamix Mix sends along this little stick to help you very it down. Now we'll add some more peppers. I'm telling you guys, this stuff is smelling pretty strong. As a matter of fact, hope you'll pardon me while I go through the mask. I'll just add these through the opening at the top. I think that'll work. Now, I believe we got them all ground up. So there we got a blended jar full of pepper mash. Now, I'm going to bring in my jar and I'm going to pour this stuff in. about halfway through. So I'm going to put a little bit of one of these containers of salt in there. Now, we'll take a towel and wipe the top of this jar really good. Want to get all this stuff off of it. I'm going to pour in the rest of that salt. I'm going to mix it in there. Now that's half of our salt we've added. What we're going to do for the rest of it is I'm just going to pour this in the container on the top of this mash. Now what that's going to do is going to create what we call a salt cap. And the salt cap is just going to be another layer of protection that's going to protect that pepper from anything that might grow as a result of oxygen. The primary thing I worry about is a harmless bacteria called calm yeast. Calm yeast is white, it's fluffy, it's in your bread when you eat it. It's on almost every food you eat. But in a fermentation jar, it tends to grow and it's not attractive. In addition to that, if you mix it in with the peppers, and there's a lot of it, it has a little bit of a bitter taste. So I like to ferment without any calm yeast. So the way I'm going to solve that problem is once I cap this bottle of ferment, I'm going to draw all the air out of the top of this jar and make this jar a vacuum. There'll be no oxygen left. There'll be no way for calm yeast to start growing immediately. And once the fermentation takes place, this salt will react with the lactobacillus bacteria that's on all vegetables. It'll start to lower the pH. It'll produce carbon dioxide gas, which will press out through the top of this one-way vent valve. That way you don't have the jar that could possibly explode and everything is safe. So, I'm going to screw this cap on. I'm going to take my little vacuum pump. And start vacuuming. There, now what we have is a purely vacuum sealed jar of mash. Now, I'm going to let this jar sit here and ferment for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, could be longer, but it's usually pretty good actually after 5 days. The acidity will be very, very high, pH will be very, very low. The taste of it will change radically. It'll go from that raw pepper taste to a much deeper, much tangier taste. And the best hot sauces made in the world are fermented. You can cook them on a big oven or in a big stove and just stir up the raw vegetables and put heat to them. But this is going to be really a horse of a different color. This is going to be fermented pepper mash. It's going to be delicious. Now, when I go to blend this, I will add this with other ingredients I have in my fermentation cabinet. Like, I've got carrots fermenting. If I want to add some fermented carrots to it, I can. I've got pineapple fermented. I've got celery fermented. I like to ferment all the things separately, then add them together in very precise measurements so I know the exact recipe that makes that sauce. So if it's delicious, I can repeat it, I can scale it up, produce it, and sell it in the bottles, okay? So this is fermentation of a pepper mash using vacuum fermentation, which I think is the very best way to ferment peppers. Now, as I said before, when you ferment, everything has to be cleaned, sanitized, and sterilized. I strongly suggest that if you're going to do much in the kitchen, if you're going to bottle, want some shelf life out of it, that you get yourself some of this star sand. Very inexpensive. Matter of fact, I'll put a link in this video of how you can buy it. It's very inexpensive. You can use it. You don't have to use it for bottling. You can use it in your kitchen when you do your normal cooking. We use it in every pot where we cook chicken. So this is a great thing to have. I want to thank you folks for joining me. I appreciate you being here with me. And I will see you next time. Thank you.